Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and here with me is Glen Pratt, visual effects supervisor for Barbie. Glen, I think in most cases, visual effects artists are kind of striving for photorealism, but in terms of this movie and creating the Barbie Land, you're dealing with these hyper stylized, this artificial world. So how did that make things different for you? How do you go about achieving these stylized visuals?
Well, I think that from very early on in working with filmmakers, working with Greta in particular, there was a real decision, with everything visually that it had to look toy, um, and particularly Barbie Land itself for the film. So it really had to key into this strong toy aesthetic. And one of the, talking really early on with Greta, she was really excited by the idea of miniatures and the language, of how miniatures have played such a key part in many, many films over the years, and they have such a beautiful crafted um, aesthetic to them. So that was something that, working with Greta and Sarah Greenwood, the production designer, um, was really sort of key to sort of establish, okay, that's something we want to do. So the choice was made that we were going to actually build some physical miniatures. And what that allowed was a sort of really sort of granular understanding of that aesthetic language, as well as these brilliant sets that were built. And so we built obviously these big stage sets were built, these beautiful dream houses and what have you. And at the same time, all these other vistas of Barbie Land were built as miniature, which allowed us to capture those. So we built them as physical miniatures. There was a brilliant miniature team that made these beautiful, like they were literally like toys, and like such vivid colors and beautiful simplistic. Everything was slightly sort of pared down into simplistic toy language. It had, in one way, fewer details, but that allowed your eye to sort of figure out where that very subtle detail would lie. And it was really sort of about composition and color and space and the size and the relative scale of all these things compared to the actors, so that everything felt slightly almost too small for everyone, which really played into that toy language. But these miniatures were, you know, they gave us a really strong grounding, which allowed us to capture those. We captured those with photogrammetry and lots of photographic reference, which then allowed us in post production to really sort of dial into that language and build those as digital assets that then would populate into many of those shots you see in Barbie Land. Some are combinations of live action with the digital miniatures, and some are wholly CG shots as well that stand within the film. And I think it's a testament to the craft of the team of artists that worked on it, both those making the sets and also the visual effects artists who did such a seamless job in marrying all of those together that the world is so cohesive and just has this really joyful sort of telling of the visual telling of the world. So when at the beginning of the film, when we first see it, everybody's just like, it's this wonderful sort of aesthetic that is really unique and joyful.
Yeah, that establishing shot of Barbie Land when Margot Robbie, looks out on this brilliant pink world with all the dream houses is one of my favorites. And that must have been, I would assume, a combination of these sets and miniatures you're talking about with your digital work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, before that, we sort of have the shot where we first zoom down into the heart of Barbie Land, which that predominantly was all CG, and then we take over into live action. And when Margot bursts out of bed, and that shot you talk about when she's standing, looking over and waving to all the other Barbies in the neighborhood, yeah, that was exactly what I was just talking about. It was, we shot at Leavesden Studios on the soundstage. There was um, let me get this right. There was 3 real dream houses on the
Mhm.
stage. One was Barbie Margot's, and then there was also the other Barbies that lived there. There was also the little tree house. And then we had the end of the stage, which was partially covered in blue sky painting, which would give us that anchor into how we wanted all the skies to look. But then also part of it was blue screen,
Mhm.
which meant that we replaced all behind that hedge line of the cul-de-sac with digital um basically digital miniatures, which
Yeah.
we did a lot of development with Greta as well early doors. That was one of the first, I think that was either the first or second day of principal photography that we shot with Margot on the roof. And we did lots of testing of that shot in terms of what we wanted that world to look like beyond, and whether it would be the idea of taking that painted scenic painting look and it being that was beyond the wall. But eventually we got to the sort of we really embraced that miniature language, which is what you see over and over throughout the film. And it's kind of that we landed on. And yes, it had digital miniatures, it had digital doubles, all lots of digital vehicles, all the cars, delivery vans, aeroplanes, boats. There was
Mhm.
lots, and the more you look at that shot, the more detail there is in there.
Yeah,
So
it's a lot of fun.
yeah.
When I look at movies, I feel like to my audience eye, sometimes the thing that makes or breaks the immersion of a visual effect, a digital effect, is the way that lighting interacts with it. And in this case, you basically have static lighting the entire time in Barbie Land because it's all artifice. It's like this fake toy land. How did that affect your work? Because you have these bright colors to work with.
And no, I mean, I think, and again, that was all really considered. Um, the idea was that so Rodrigo Prieto, the DOP, who was fantastic, he was just who for him it was a real departure from what his normal work is, and he. I mean, we always there was always sort of rules within Barbie Land that you never really see the sun. There's one shot where you see the sun and it rises as this sort of almost very cartoon-like um, little sun. But other than that, you never see the source of the sun, but it's always sunny in Barbie Land. And everybody was always backlit, so they were always beautifully rim lit. So it was very purposeful in terms of its lighting. And I think that allowed for a real consistency throughout the film because that was the way everything was lit. It gives it such it anchors into everything always looking very consistent. Um, One thing we did do, however, was we shot on the volume stage at Leavesden Studios as well, where we did actually have so there was sort of more complex moving light setups, so that gave a lot of those shots when Barbie Margot is first driving into Barbie Lands, sorry, down to the beach. A lot of those shots were actually shot in the volume, where that gave us a more complex interactivity of buildings passing and light and shadow, which was something we really wanted to have so that again, when we finished that work, that they just looked seamlessly sort of embedded within the language that we'd seen elsewhere. So that nobody would be questioning, oh, that's done here and that was done there, that everything had a seamless execution, for want of a better word. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when most people they had a kind of reaction when they heard about this movie, they were like, really? They're gonna make a massive big budget Barbie movie? And then I think after people saw it, people's reactions changed to, I can't believe Greta Gerwig got away with all of this. When you got this job, what was your reaction? Did you have expectations that came along with it?
I just was really excited. The thought of working with all of those filmmakers, Greta particularly, and um, I'd worked with David Heyman before, and but working with Margot, who was also producer on the job, and Greta and Noah Baumbach. working with all of those people, it was a absolutely fantastic experience. And I was just like, for me, every job is always different because you're dealing with different people, and it's that aspect of it which I enjoy, And as a team of filmmakers and everybody that was working on it, the other HODs, it was a really great collaborative process. And I I honestly can't think of another film where I've worked on and felt so um, like you're actually contributing to how this picture will look. Um, and it just felt, my initial thoughts were I actually got goosebumps when I first was told that I was going to get a call about this film, and I was like, oh my God. So it was genuinely really thrilling. And just to work with Greta, who is very funny and very appreciative of what everybody brings to the process, I think it is a testament to how the film looks, because she really embraces those people around her and sort of nurtures the best that you can give.
Mm. Would you say you were involved at an earlier stage, or the collaboration felt different on this film than others? Because it seems like you would need such a tight uh, collaboration across departments to pull off this vision.
Yeah, I mean, I think there really was. I was on quite early. Yeah, I came on. Greta wasn't even in the country yet, when I first started, and then I met Greta a few weeks after that. Um, but I'd worked with Sarah Greenwood, the production designer, before as well. So, there was an understanding. And again, as I said, I'd worked with David Heyman, so I knew some of the key filmmaking people involved in the whole process. And I, yes, there was a lot of decision making to be done and a lot of ways to help Greta. The visual effects process, we helped her by bringing in tools that kind of could allow shortcuts to get some of the complex answers of how we were going to make the film. And the producers were really on board with that idea because we all wanted this to be a fantastic piece of filmmaking. So I think there was things that Greta hadn't worked with before, and some of the other filmmakers hadn't worked with before. We did use virtual scouting tools, which really helped to answer questions and logistics of how we're going to make certain key sequences work. And it also helped us decide quite quickly which shots would become entirely CG shots or which ones, so it would just really help. And I think that helped put Greta's understanding of how we were planning this. It really, Rodrigo really bought into those virtual scouting sessions as well. So it really helped everybody, you know, get ahead before we started shooting.
Yeah.
Um, so that role I think was quite key, that visual effects and myself were embedded pretty early on in the production process. And given the fact that there was the desire to use the volume technology, which again has a very big lead time so that you can be prepared fully to use that. So,
Well, after all of that lead time and all of that work, the film really took off in a way that most films don't these days at the box office. The internet created this entire Barbenheimer movement, but then for
yeah,
Barbie, you have people going in groups. It became the must-do thing to go out with your friends, dress up, and make this event of it. What was it like seeing that unfold?
it was kind of amazing. I mean, yeah, I was, I mean, I went to the premiere and that was full of a lot of people that were um, clearly very big Barbie fans. And then I was still in New York um, just as the film came out, I think, and I witnessed, as you say, like people queuing go to the cinema all dressed up, and And I think I had a lot of friends actually message me, and sort of they didn't know, I'd been away for over a year pretty much, and they didn't, as you said earlier, lots of people didn't know what to expect from this film. And I just had people text me going, what a great experience it was to see this film with people really excited to see a film again, which I think that was, and I remember when it was the last few days of doing the grade with Greta, and we watched it in Dolby Vision at one of the Dolby theaters in New York, and Greta was and myself, and we were all just watching it, going, "This looks incredible," And it was so like the Dolby Vision grade really brought it up a level as well, and I was like, this is so sort of goosebumpy, literally sort of certain scenes just were so vivid and brilliant. And then to be in a cinema where people are that into something, I just think was lovely. It was just a genuinely sort of lovely thing to happen. And I think more of that, you know, I think that people clearly want that sort of exciting new experience at cinema, you know.
Yes, more of that, please. Well,
Yeah.
Barbie was certainly that for many of us this year. So Glenn, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me about it. And for those watching, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby. Stick with us this season. Glenn, thank you again.
Thank you.